It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV as we bring you Motorsport Australia ANZ E-Series Category King. 2 events tonight, Formula Cars and Sports Cars at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve and Detroit Belle Isle. 2 unique, challenging street circuits, 2 unique and challenging disciplines of racing that we bring to your screens tonight. And first up, it is the Formula Cars here in Canada at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. David Haynes with Daniel Yeaman here to bring you live coverage of it. And it looks like it will be a very, very challenging event for our competitors. Some really highly skilled and well-known and well-regarded Australian sim racers present tonight.
Sure is, David. Thank you for the introduction there, and welcome everyone joining us across, be it SimSpeed socials or Motorsport Australia's social media platforms as well, if that's all behaving itself in the background. And indeed, brand new series here in collaboration between the team at Motorsport Australia's Esports division and ANZ E-Series here tonight. And as I said, it's a bit of a different one from what we usually see, David. Different car track combinations is not something we usually see in a series, but that's what we've got starting off here tonight.
Famously in the middle of the river, next to the seaway and the canal, next to the Olympic rowing basin. Hopefully, we have no rowboating and no showboating tonight, just good racing around a Grand Prix specification street circuit through the park. Key overtaking opportunities, as always. Turn 1, the hairpin at turn 10, and into the chicane at 13 and 14. Mind that wall of champions on the outside. Never rule out some other overtaking opportunities around here. Famously considered as a circuit, it can be very tough on brakes. Lots of repetitive big stops.
Yeah, that will be one thing to keep in mind as well. Thankfully, though, in all that's being said, David, fairly short races tonight, so shouldn't expect the cars to be going through too much of a work here in terms of managing that kind of stuff. It'll be down to the drivers and how much they can extract from the cars across the course of those races, I would dare say.
So practice is about to finish. They'll get into qualifying to set their grid for the 25-minute race. Let's take a look at the first event of Category King tonight. 2 laps of qualifying, 25-minute race. And of course, first up is these Formula Cars. It's the FIA F4 current specification of cars. Fuel tank limit at 25% there in a standing start. And then another race to follow with the sports cars. Mercedes-AMG GT4 at Detroit Belle Isle. And that will be a rolling start, as is normal for GT4 racing cars.
Yes, indeed, and one of those things that we'll be expecting to see how drivers manage that here will be interesting, I think. Standing starts, one thing is we just manage to get that clutch drop right with the rolling start. Time your launch, that will be the play there indeed. Well, as you said, David, drivers are now just starting to head out for qualifying, so we can now start cutting to the track for live footage of what we're seeing out here on track, although some of the drivers, as you might start seeing here on screen now, looking to try and get as much heat in their tyres as possible to get these cars warmed up for just 2 laps.
Yeah, look at the low sun, cool temperatures in the air, cool temperatures on the track. So getting some temperature into the tyres, getting some confidence, getting them into their best working range will certainly be the challenge. At the moment, it's 18 in the air, 19 on the track, and the angle of that sun early in the morning with a bit of breeze about, I don't think the track is going to get too hot across this qualifying session. At the moment, looking at the drivers preparing, and no one has yet started a flying lap. This is Jamie Christensen, one of the highest ranked driver by iRacing's system of trying to assess driver speed and skill to try to match you with competitors in official series that would be good competition for you. For league racing, for special events, for an event like this, I don't think you put quite as much stock into the iRating, but all other things being equal, it can be used as a tie-break in some circumstances, and it just pins Jamie Christensen as one of the drivers to keep an eye on, along with Zach Rattray White, Caleb Hydes, Benjamin Roberts, and Ewan Baker, who are the top 5 by that measurement. They are about to get going in their first qualifying laps. Here's Caleb Hydes attacking through the final chicane to full throttle, because now the clock starts and every second counts.
Sure does indeed. Let's ride on board for a little bit here with Caleb Hydes, who's actually one of our couple of drivers in this field tonight, David, who currently holds an active iRacing World Championship license. Himself and Benjamin Roberts both currently competing in the FIA F4 Global Championship held over the weekends, and good to have some Australian representation in that field, of course, but also here with us tonight in these cars to start off the Category King.
So certainly using a lot of the curbs through the early part of the lap there. The car didn't seem settled, but it did seem quick. So that's what you're dealing with now, really trying to wrangle every little bit of time out across a street circuit. The curbs, of course, super important around here, particularly at that final chicane. We haven't gotten there yet. Caleb Hyde's going to go up through the gears on the paddle sequential gearbox, braking underneath the bridge. Here's another place where you don't want to get too much of those big white curbs. They will bottom out the car. They can even damage the under tray, which can cost you downforce, cost you straight line speed, and therefore cost you quite a bit of lap time. And with 2 flying laps, tyre temperature building as they go, the sun barely peeking over the horizon for this morning, I think that lap 1 you could approach as a banker lap, with lap 2 as the one where you really try to barnstorm and put yourself onto the pole position. Caleb Hydes has got the throttle all the way to the floor for a long time down the back straight. Steno to his right, rowing boat Lake to his left. Is he feeling lucky on this lap? A bit wider the first apex, getting a lot of the second apex through the final chicane. Take the straight line to the start-finish line. And are they going to have time for the second lap?
Not by Caleb Hydes' number there. That's going to be a one and done, and around he will go as he tries to get that second lap started. But based on what I'm seeing there from lap times and times remaining as drivers came across the line, we are only going to see one and done from all these drivers, which means that unless there's anyone who hasn't snuck through just yet, this man here, Zach Rattray White's going to be the man who starts on the pole position for this one, David.
Yeah, you do the sums at the moment. The pole position is 1:36, just over 90 seconds. Well, if you did your outlap, 2 flying laps of 1:30-ish, then that'd be about 4.5 minutes. You wouldn't have much time to spare. I wonder if the drivers who dilly-dallied a little bit on their outlap are going to miss out on the opportunity for a second flying lap. Well, it looks like Zach Rattray White and a few others might come around and be able to complete them. And there's a few drivers who might have no qualifying time at all. That's where iRating as the tiebreaker comes in to set the tail of the grid. If more than one driver has no valid time from qualifying, they're all going to need to find a lot of time to displace Zach Rattray White from the top, Seth Brown, Caleb Hydes, James Raymakers, and Callum Newton as the top 5 at the moment. Here is Callum Newton. Is there enough time to finish this lap? Bouncing across the curbs at the final chicane.
Don't think there is.
3, 2, 1, time about to run out for him, and I think he doesn't make it, and it sets the grid.
He did not make it indeed. Short by maybe 2 to 3 seconds but it mattered all the same at the end of the day. So in just a second here, folks, we'll be able to bring up the grid here of those drivers here for the Motorsport Australia ANZ E-Series Category King. And as we saw there from that one-lap run, it will be Zach Rattree on the pole, sharing it with his Vermilion Esports teammate, Seth Brown, alongside for half a second between the two of them, I should say, as well. But that'll be how the front row lines up. Caleb Hydes for Eclipse Sim Sports will be sharing the second row with James Raymakers there, and third and fourth. And we'll jump back to Callum Newton and Justin Talent for the top 6. 7th and 8th is going to go to Rue Coistro. Don't see him out racing too often thanks to his work with FRG Esports, but let's see how he goes tonight with Brendan Crawford on track alongside him starting in 8th place. For the top 10, David, he rounded out, by Josh Marsh and Anthony Bay.
Yep, and then in 11th place we find Dan Feldman and David Atkinson. These are some not particularly representative times here. You see 6 and 12 seconds off of pole. A few drivers struggled with really cold tyre temperatures on that qualifying lap. There are a few crashes that we didn't see, a few spins at the hairpin as well. And these are some of those drivers who, on their one and only flying lap, have missed out on a qualifying time. Jamie Christensen, Benjamin Roberts, and then Ewan Baker will start from 15th place, no qualifying time. Matthew Hansford Taylor, no qualifying time. Sam Chapman, no qualifying time. And Stephen Banks, no qualifying time. So, in the end, iRating just a little bit important, and a few drivers who just got one clean lap start in the mid-pack.
Oh, pardon me, I just had myself muted whilst I was having a moment there, David, so apologies there. Just started talking without it going through. But I was just saying there to everyone listening in with us, just hearing from Race Control now over the in-game radio that the drivers will not be able to make it on fuel here in this race tonight. So they will have to come down the pit lane, top up the tanks, but they've got complete freedom over when they do that here tonight. So just waiting now on everyone to join the grid, and then we'll be underway here shortly.
So there's the Pavillon du Canada here in Montreal. Lots of other interesting things on the island around the racetrack. There's a beach, obviously there's rowing, there's locks for cargo ships just beside the island. You've got the casino and other pieces of entertainment here, and you can access it by cycling over the bridge, walking over the bridge, catching the metro here. And the racetrack is one of the key things that brings people to this island at Montreal. When it's race time, this place is absolutely bustling. So with an extended countdown to gridding, it will take a little while until we get this first of 2 events tonight underway with a 1/4 size fuel tank. And it's already a smallish fuel tank for an F4 car. It's not an endurance racing car. It's not a full Grand Prix length style of racing car. So they don't build it with a 120 litre fuel tank like an F1 car. And so a pit stop's going to be required in this 25-minute first race. Pit entry is interesting here at Montreal at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, because you brake so late for that final chicane if you're heading for pit entry.
Yeah, that will be one to watch out for, and whether drivers are going to make sure they can get themselves in a clean bit of track to pit, because as you said, there's a lot of time you can make up there on the way in if you've got clean air ahead. But if you get stuck behind someone, well, you've either got to just play it smart, or you gamble and try and go up the inside of them before the final chicane, David, and then get in front as you hit for pit entry whilst they look to turn in for the apex of the chicane there as normal.
And then pit exits also changed across the years. When I first started watching Formula One, and the pit exit led you towards the inside of turn 1 here, it got extended around to the outside of turn 2. So pit in, pit out, all very interesting around here. It's a long-ish pit lane, and the pit lane speed limit is 80 kilometers an hour. Unlimited sets of tires for the race, but I think it'll be quite a short, quick drop of fuel, and the tires don't change particularly quickly in a race condition for F4 cars.
I'm just hearing over the radio now as well. We are 1 minute from taking the race start. So last couple of drivers are going to jump on the grid and we'll be able to get underway here very shortly. Folks, for the opening race of the Motorsport Australia Esports and ANZ E-Series Category King. And of course, as you said, first of 2 races here today as well to keep in mind. And it's the first of 3 events. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. I'll actually make an effort to get ourselves a graphic as well for good measure to help out there, David. But yes, now just waiting for the lights to go green here.
20 seconds is the countdown. Got almost all of the field, including teammates on the front row of the grid. Zachariah Trey White and Seth Brown will have the front of the field when they head down in towards turn 1. Again, track conditions not changing much from qualifying to this race session. Still a very early morning, cool track. 25 minutes. You don't want to take too much risk at that very, very first corner on the cold tyres. Starting sequence, lights on, drivers revving to go racing for the first event of Category King, and they get away with a bit of wheel spin from your pole sitter, a bit of a bogged down no wheel spin from second place. So Caleb Hydes from third has a great launch down towards turn 1. They all have to eventually get single file. That's what's happening up front. Not too much contact or dramas in the tail of the field either.
All right, steady start indeed, which is what we like to see as they make their way through this first third of the lap. And although drivers twitching around in a couple of cars there in the wall. I think that was Callum Newton, 5th in line there, unfortunately has just rubbed up against the wall, but that seems to have been okay for now, David, as he carries on. Only driver I'm seeing with issue, slow down penalty for Sam Chapman in the 101.
Now we've got a big coming together at turn 5, I think it is. Look at that on their lid. Matthew Hansford-Taylor, you've got a couple of quick drivers who didn't qualify, forcing their way through the field, potentially causing some issues. I saw someone throw their nose down the inside 3 wide and it ended how I maybe expected it to.
Well, we'll grab a replay of that at maybe towards the end of this lap, just see how it plays out here as top 3 are all pretty orderly. A bit of moving and shaking here into the hairpin for the first time, although I believe the moving and shaking has sort of settled back down. This is the group in behind Callum Newton for 5th place. Got Rook Hoyster there, Justin Talent side by side in behind as they now make their way to the chicane, and the World Champions for the first time here, David, in race trim.
World Champions claimed 1 or 2 victims in qualifying, but in the race, no dramas just yet. Callum Newton there leading Rook Hoyster, Justin Talent and Jamie Christensen through. Christensen, again, one of the highest rated drivers here, one of the fastest drivers in practice, set no qualifying time, working his way through the field with no delay. Started out of the 13th, now runs in 8th. This is backwards from Callum Newton in 5th place. Your top 3, your top 4 looking like a little bit of a breakaway.
Yeah, I think they are settling in quite nicely indeed, as we'll we can see a couple of cars ducking to the pit lane, and fortunately for them, that's going to be a pretty long night coming in this early, it would seem.
And the way this is all set up with the fuel tank restriction, even stopping now on the opening lap, you probably wouldn't be able to fit the fuel to get you all the way to the end, so they might even need a second stop out of some of those drivers. Well, of course, keep an eye on it, and the pit stop times could be quite important. Little single-seaters still climbing all over the curbs, many places around here, and a similar thing will happen with the GT4 cars when we go to Belle Isle in the next event later on tonight. So the hairpin and onto the back straight, go the front of the field. So here we have 3 wide, does not work particularly well on a street circuit. Ben Roberts was the driver who saw them 2 wide and decided he could also fit his nose down the inside there for 3 wide.
Let's jump back again and have a look at this from another angle. So yeah, Roberts, as you said, indeed, good spot up the inside, trying to fight. Unfortunately, they've just compressed right on the apex. He gets through, thankfully. But yeah, these guys here, and yeah, as I said, Matthew Hansford-Taylor goes acrobatics in the FIA F4, and thankfully gets it back going towards the pits, David. But nevertheless, that's definitely put a bit of an obstacle in his goals for tonight, I'm sure.
And about 50 years too late for the Montreal Olympics as well, so can't grade that flip as highly as otherwise I might have liked. In fact, it's going to be quite disappointing for him. So you've got your top 14 cars that haven't stopped yet. Zachariah Trey White just breaking out 1 second away from the rest of the field there. Caleb Hyde has gotten in between the teammates into second place. Seth Brown still closely with him. James Raymakers is just a tiny bit away from the leaders, but stretching an advantage over the pack that we've seen. Callum Newton is leading out of the 5th position. Hyde's a little wide through the first part of that chicane. Clobbering the curb on the exit can harm your ability to get to power and carry speed down towards the hairpin braking zone.
Yeah, want to watch out for that. Don't want to get yourselves all tripped up on each other, because that would definitely be nasty, to say the least. But
spin from Christensen at the hairpin, parked on the racing line. He has to find reverse gear, and he loses many positions before he can get going again. He'll probably still be losing time all the way down this casino straight towards the final chicane in the Wall of Champions. Here it is, concertina effect at the hairpin, and as he's maybe just trailing off the brakes a little bit and trying to turn in sharply for a crossover under to a late apex, loses the rear of the car on what's still a very cold racetrack.
all right, a bit of movement into the pit lane from Ewan Baker this time by in the number 34 machine. That seems to be a bit early from my amateur brain. Benjamin Roberts has just gotten past Justin Talent here as the DPR racing driver swings around the outside of the number 91, and we'll get that job done as they head up towards turns 3 and 4 there.
Indeed, looks tactical from Ewan Baker, and a very short stop indeed, just a 4 seconds. So I keep an eye on what all of the fuel numbers end up looking like. This is 5th and 6th. It's Callum Newton and Rukoistra. There's a couple little things with some of these iRacing street circuits that clue you in to exactly when iRacing brought their laser scanners around here, and perfectly millimeter accuracy, replicating the exact dimensions of the racing surface, the bumps, the grooves, and everything. They've left up a few little signs around. So some of the overpasses have their 4-meter clearance signs that aren't present on race day, but were outside of race time when they were here. Bathurst's also got a couple of the 50k an hour speed signs up that aren't there on race weekend.
Oh, being told issues in the chicane. I'll try and pick them up here for you folks as they work their way in. I can hear grinding and scraping, and potentially being told pit entry. Well, that's Matt Hansford-Taylor who's rubbing up against the wall there. Might go and grab another replay here, Dave, because unfortunately for him, he's a lap down now and coming back to the pits for a second time in this race.
He was limping down the back straight towards the chicane, and there was already damage on that car, and he's even struggled at low speed to point straight into his pit box. So
apologies, that wasn't
before then. It's going to be before that.
That was the start of lap 3.
Yeah, the right rear is already no good. He's already sparking, so he's done a whole lap like this with a flat tire, broken toe link, and he's gone and tried to skip all of the chicanes to be able to limp this thing around through the pit lane, cause a bit of dramas for just a couple of the other drivers back there. Ooh, not optimal, but not at risk of breaking the pit lane speed limit of 80 k's an hour doing that, I don't think. It's gotten hot up front. Caleb Hyde has taken the fastest lap of the race, and he's taken time out of Zach Rattray-White at the lead of this race. On board with the second place driver as he has a massive moment of oversteer, getting to throttle in one of the low gears out of the hairpin. He slides up into the wall at low speed, doesn't appear to have done too much damage, and it's not the way you want to be going about it.
You can see that's hurt him quite a lot there with the run off the hairpin. So hopefully you see him catch up in due course, but gets back in line through the chicane, still fighting cold or slippery tyres. Well, at this point it might actually be overheated tyres, David. He's going to keep driving the car like that.
Yeah, interesting to see how it works out. Definitely plenty of movement from these cars. You're seeing the drivers make lots of adjustments through the corners. They're on a little bit of a knife edge. Brendan Crawford comes to pit. So increasing number of drivers just trying to make sure they take on board the fuel they need to get all the way to the end. But looking at how quick some of those stops are, is there a game to be played with some really massive fuel saving? A real intervention that's going to help you save way more fuel in this one. I'm not seeing anyone who looks like they've really backed off their pace big time compared to their best and what they're capable of. Still just half a second for first and second place in the first of two events in ANZ E-Series and Motorsport Australia Esports Category King. Other battles through the field. As Raymaker's now being caught by Callum Newton, who's picked up the pace somewhat, leaving Rue Koistra a little bit further behind. Ben Roberts has shaken off that first lap and found a little bit more speed. So gaining some positions through the field now and maybe shaping up for another. The leaders are not going to hit pit lane this time around. We're not at the halfway point yet either, so they can probably still go quite a few more laps before they absolutely have to think about stopping. Roberts looked like he got a good job and a good run out of the final chicane. And here's the best running car that has stopped. It's Ewan Baker.
Yep, just made a pass on David Atkinson down at the hairpin. Speaking of passes, there goes Benjamin Roberts up the inside of Rue Koistra there. So up to P number 6 for the 74 machine, and is our biggest mover of the race so far, David. Although, of course, that's a very much influx with drivers having come to the pits already in this one so far.
Yeah, so there's a few drivers with some slightly inflated numbers if drivers that they were battling with have gone and stopped and given them a couple extra positions there. But it still looks good for Ewan Baker because he has stopped and he's still +3. He started out 15th. Now he's 12th with a little bit of extra fuel in his F4 car. There are those clearance signs on the bridge that are on top of the advertising, but they take off for Grand Prix weekend so that they don't block the advertising.
Another battle brewing here towards the back of the train as well, it seems. So these are unfortunately drivers such as Josh Marsh and Anthony Bate that have come to the pits after getting entangled there on lap 1 at this very corner they're approaching here, which I believe would be turn 6 at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, if I can count up correctly. Just all the kinks and curves around here, you sort of lose track of exactly how many turns if you're not careful. But there's still actually, notably, David, a bit of damage there on the front wing of Josh Marsh, unfortunately. Let's have a quick look and see here. They do have a fast repair available to them, so he could have fixed that car up, but appear not to have done so in this session so far, as more movement into the pit lane, this time from Benjamin Roberts.
Personally, I lose count after Un, deux, trois. That's as much French as I ever had. There's a little bit more movement on pit lane, and this is with the race leaders, Zachary Trey White, just keeping Caleb Hydes at bay for the moment. Both of them working pretty hard, sliding across the concrete up towards the wall. You see how those tyre marks end up there. Drivers giving plenty of ambition, sliding it around just a little bit. Hydes through these chicane sections, focusing more on the second apex. He's gotten to power really well. They're going to head underneath the bridge. Curved a little straight here towards the next braking zone. Rattray White, driver's right-hand side, comes back across onto the racing line, and Caleb Hydes follows him, but again, getting really good exits out of these two-part chicanes. He doesn't have to brake too deep. He can coast into the corners, get super close, and then get a really good exit, which is what he's going to have to get into the inside of the hairpin. He goes the tight line, looking across back over under and get to good power. Zach Rattray White can now slipstream down the casino straight towards the final chicane in this battle for the race lead.
Let's have a watch of this one now. Has to go the long way around. Maybe this is a chance to dive into the pit lane straight away here with no encumbrance ahead of him, with drivers taking the normal line into the race. And yeah, that's exactly what he's going to do. Hydes will stay to the racetrack. Rattray White re-inherits the race lead for all of 100 metres as he dives into the pit lane there at the end of, what lap are we on? Lap number 8.
8 completed now. 8 completed for Caleb Hydes and Seth Brown as they stay out on the racetrack. Zach Rattray White, Callum Newton, James Raymakers, Jamie Christensen, a lot of drivers hitting the pit lane right now.
Suggest to me, perhaps, David, we are right on the limit of what 25% fuel can do for the FIA F4 here at Montreal, and the cars that have been behind, such as Caleb Hydes for most of the race, have just been given their extra lap of fuel saving, if that might be correct, as Hydes has decided to also put a bit of a slip and slide on there through the chicane at turn 6 and 7. Man, that was loose.
Well, he knows this is a pretty important lap. He's got to overcut his rival for the win, Zach Rattray White. if the run through the pit lane for Rattray White lets him cool off the tyres a little bit, lets him get back into the peak grip zone, and he can have a good outlap while Hides pushes on here, then maybe Rattray White could go for an undercut. These little open wheelers, though, are often very, very weight sensitive. They're a very light car, so even just a couple of kilos of fuel, which is what Zach Rattray White will have had to put in, can often mean that they're quickest right on the very last lap before they run out of fuel.
Yes, that is something I would normally expect from these cars, so we'll see if that is indeed how it works out for them here in this race. As keep an eye on your race leader as he works his way into the pit lane, and now it's time to see, has he done enough to overcut Zach Rattray White, who had been sitting in front this entire time. Here is the driver who led the race up until the last lap around. Can he get back out in front? Or can Hides, with a pit stall right up towards the front, beat him here? No. Rattray White's going to get ahead of him, I think. Not
It's
massively.
so hard to know here, though, at Montreal, because there's Caleb Hides just feeding around just behind. Rattray White had a fractionally quicker stop, fractionally quicker transit through the lane, and maybe that in-lap for Caleb Hides was just a little bit scruffy. Rattray White, good tactical decision then, gets himself back to the lead. Everyone's made their pit stop. They started with just 10 litres of fuel on board. It's Rattray White from Caleb Hyde, Seth Brown, Callum Newton. Ewan Baker has gotten up to 5th with his early stop. It's worked pretty well for the Scottish New Zealander.
Very good note there indeed. So, only problem for him is he's got a big old train in behind him at the moment, and that's going to be difficult to shake, I would think, as this race goes on. Benjamin Roberts right behind. And Rook Boyce nearly a second back, but might still be able to threaten. Then you've got Christensen, Talent, and Raymakers also rounding out your top 10 for good measure as well, David.
Great little fight in the middle here. Ewan Baker's played a good strategy call on all of them, but there are some quick drivers behind him. Jamie Christensen, Benjamin Roberts, for example. Rook Ustra holding ground as well, with Justin Talent and James Raymakers in this pack. Backwards from 5th place driver. And the slipstream gets so powerful. Once you're up into 5th and 6th gear in these cars, they got their exposed tyres, they got their wings out there, and they're only 200-ish horsepower. They're not a 1,000 horsepower race car. They reach this point where their terminal velocity on the straight comes relatively early, and the car behind can get a really, really nice tow. That's what we've seen here. Christensen just biding his time there, trying to set it up for the next one as Krustra has to skip the chicane.
Oh, that'll hurt him there as the slowdown will kick in. Still on board here with Ewan Baker, but Benjamin Roberts to the inside for turn number 1. That's that kink there actually counts as turn 1. I should try and remember these kind of things. So back to P6 for the 34 machine, but that's still up 9, which is equal most now in this race with the 74 of Roberts directly in front.
Anthony Bate with a second pit stop. Again, what we thought we were going to see from a lot of those drivers who stopped lap 1 is that they were not going to fill from there and get to the end. They were going to have to make another one. Josh Marsh also 2 stops, and a few others we might expect. Puts them in a difficult position in this first event.
It sure does, unfortunately. As on board here with Rainmakers, looking to try and get past Justin Talent, who's now got Rook Oystra back up to racing speed in behind him as well. So this very much could be a 3-way battle, although Oystra dropping back to around 1.1 off. And also a little update coming from the iRacing timing and scoring. David, unfortunately for David Atkinson here, mechanical black flag for the number 61 driver, so that sees him down the lane for a second time in this race.
A lot of damage on the front right for him, and he's about to go a lap down. This is the race lead now. Caleb Hyde still has the fastest lap of the race, and he's just made it even better on this lap. He's hitting his element, so even if the in-lap, out-lap pit stop time wasn't as slick for Caleb Hyde as it was for Zach Rattray White, when it comes to using the slipstream, battling wheel to wheel, it's where Caleb Hyde has been strong. Started on the second row of the grid, dispatched Seth Brown and has left him behind, caught up to Zach Rattray White, and the battle was on just before those pit stops happened that fell in the favour of Zach Rattray White. But Caleb Hyde, look at this. First sector, bit of time gain. Second sector, bit of time gain. Final sector, with that exit off the hairpin, and the long casino straight slipstream. Well, 3/10 there.
Yeah, that's going to be the big one, I think, as he's now really hunting, because he's really throwing it into some of these chicanes here, which I honestly think is potentially a little hurtful. At least it's hurting a little bit with the run down these shorter segments of straightaway on the middle of the lap. Saying that, still was up in the last lap. But then, of course, here, long straightaway, unbroken from the hairpin to the final chicane and the War of Champions. This obviously is the easiest bit of gain he will make on the lap. And saying that, though, he is dropping back towards 9/10 of a second, not closing up towards 8 at this particular time down this stretch of the track, David.
We saw some of the onboards earlier. You can see the gears that the drivers are using. They just keep pulling up gears, up gears, up gears on the straights. 6 speeds to play with, and they really do use all of them. And you don't have a whole lot of torque from the small engines that go in an F4 car. And therefore, once you get towards the end of the straight, start to top out a little bit, and the slipstream does feel a lot stronger in these cars than it does in faster open wheels. A second pit stop for Ewan Baker, his first one, must have been for damage, and it must have been too early.
8-lap stint in pitting before he comes back in, so maybe he came in on lap 1 as well. Unfortunately, we can't.
He came in lap 3, and I thought, oh, okay, this is an early stop. It could work, but that was still too early. So 2 stops for Ewan Baker, unfortunately, as the wheel-to-wheel battling is Justin Talent and James Raymakers. I think Talent pulled that one off, or are we still seeing Raymakers? Yeah, it's still Raymakers behind trying to fight.
Actually, to be precise, it happened back at the end of the last lap, lap 12, that there was a change of position between these two. So I might actually go quickly flick to a replay and just quickly show you how that was done here as the fight continues on lap number 13. Pardon me, he's already ahead at that point there. I think that's not quite adding up on that one. Apologies, it might be because with Baker coming to pits, I think it might have just had a bit of a... Or did he get it in front marginally there and that's counted? That might have been what happened there, according to what I'm seeing. Back to the live feed anyways.
They're slipstreaming each other beside the lake towards the last braking zone of the lap. Another battle just up the road from them as well. So with 3 laps to go, there'll be plenty of fights to try to sort out here on the streets of Montreal at Circuit I messed it up again. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, including Roberts here battling with Callum Newton, gets ahead. That's been Roberts' textbook trademark move. Seems to get off the final chicane really well, and then gets to the inside of the left-hander and can then park it through the hairpin right, and then get into his flow for the rest of the lap and get back ahead. So that's 10 positions gained over the race for Benjamin Roberts.
Yeah, that has certainly been a charge and a half. So watch out. Don't know if he'll be able to get any more spots because he's got 5.8 seconds up the road to Seth Brown. The car directly in front of him, unfortunately, is lap traffic at this stage. There is Seth Brown. If we try and pull up the comparison, nope, that won't work. And looks like a bit of mischief there with that one, unfortunately. But we'll keep the footage there. The car in between is the number 61 of David Atkinson there, unfortunately. So still going on, which is good to see, I have to say, David, just not for position compared to the drivers in front and behind.
Yeah, and race leader Zach Rattray White has saved his best for last. He's just put in his personal best lap of the race. Well, Caleb Hydes has faded a little bit. Race leading gap is out to almost 2 seconds here. This is not Caleb Hydes monstering the race lead like he was at the halfway point. Zach Rattray White putting in a couple of good laps in a row and a scruffy one. 2 scruffy ones in a row for Caleb Hydes. The lead extends for Rattray White. No white flag as they cross the start-finish line that time. It's 2 more laps to go, but it is pretty close. So maybe Hyde's going to lap 9 before he pitted. Could be better than Rattray White, who went to lap 8. And Benjamin Roberts stopped after just 7 laps with 2 more to go here. Second stop comes in for Brendan Crawford. So there's a few drivers who've hit the lane twice.
Yeah, that's a good point to make there indeed. Will be 1 more lap around next time by. There's just, pardon me, get a few things back on screen for us all to have a look at. And I think for me, at this point, David, the main thing is going to be, at this point, it really should be a case of just bring it home, and you should be good there. Zach, we'll have to see how that all works out for them.
Less than a minute on the clock. Lap times here are in the 96-second range. So we're expecting to start the final lap very, very shortly. One of two events tonight for Category King, ANZ E-Series Motorsport Australia Esports. Really good fly through the chicane, precise change of direction, minimum speeds high, back to throttle early. And where's Barney live here at the racetrack? I'm pretty sure we would have started the final lap for sure, though.
Likewise, I would concur that should be a dead set final lap starting. I think, well, the clock says that it has to be the final lap of the race as well. So through turns 3 and 4, or is it 4 and 5? I'll rue myself for not knowing this day onwards here as they get this first sector, as it were, of the lap complete. And yeah, now that the time has expired, there is the confirmation, if you needed it, that we are on the final lap of this race. And
Hydes has just dropped 1 second through that last chicane. It's really woed up the pace a little bit. I don't know if he had a mistake or a slide back there, but suddenly it's the nicest lead that Zach Rattray-White's enjoyed in a long, long time on the final lap. Here, almost out to 3 seconds. It's down to about 1.5. Hydes has maybe seen that his best chances are behind him now. Seth Brown in third position, got Talent and Raymaker's still fighting it out on the final lap. Chapman and Questra are still going to fight it out on the final lap, but there's not enough fight left for first, second and third. Caleb Hydes has given it his very best effort, but the qualifying from Zach Rattray-White gave him the pole position. He's held all of the pressure, and he is the winner of the first event, the Category King at Circuit Montreal. Caleb Hydes even shortcutting the final chicane there. What's with that?
an ambitious move, perhaps, to try and get something there, but it will not result in anything. It does clear the slowdown penalty as far as I noticed there to get that spot, as there's been a late change of position. Benjamin Roberts actually getting up past Seth Brown on the run, and by the looks, he says Seth Brown overshot the chicane, or has he fired it, run out of fuel, perhaps? I'll have to try and pick up a replay to confirm that one there for you, David, as that means that it's Brown back to fourth, Callum Newton to round out your top five there in the 7-2 machine. He had Jamie Christensen right on his tail at the end of this race. So we just wait for our last couple of drivers to make their way around to finish this one off.
It also said that Rue Koistra had a furled black flag, and it'll tell you slow down and give up 2 or 3 seconds. But if you don't and you cross the checkered flag with that penalty still looming, then it gets increased to like 40 seconds. So here's Koistra, oh man, locking it up in the hairpin.
Seth Brown here as well.
Oh, loses the rear, fires over the curb, shortcuts it, knows he needs to give it up before the timing line. And Benjamin Roberts, no, come on, man. Get out of here with that blocking nonsense. Ben Roberts still goes through for third place.
Well, he tried, as you said. Unfortunately, that wasn't going to work out for him there. So, with that all said and done, results are now official, and we can now bring up the results as they were, folks, and run you through the field as it finished. There, apologies there. Looks like I've got a couple of cars, still going around back to the pits, but bring up here on screen for you now, David, our race results as they stand for the opening event of the Category King.
Yep, Zach Rattray-White, the winner, leading almost all of the laps except around that pit stop window, which he still managed to perfection with his in-lap, his out-lap to maintain the race lead. Clinical at the end as Caleb Hydes pushed on but couldn't find enough speed to challenge him and ended up 4 seconds behind in second. The podium completed with a late change there, Benjamin Roberts. In the end, just 4/10 ahead of Seth Brown. It was close whether Brown was going to be able to hold on to that third position or not. And Callum Newton only just behind them as well in the 5th place from Jamie Christensen. Pretty close all around 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. some drivers who maybe will rue their little errors in qualifying as well. Justin Talent, James Raymakers, Sam Chapman, and Rue Koistra as the top 10. The other drivers who finished on the lead lap were Ewan Baker with 2 stops, Stephen Banks with 1 stop, Anthony Bate with 2 stops, Josh Marsh with 2 stops, and into retirements or 3 stops or lap down territory here with Brendan Crawford, David Atkinson, Diane Feldman, and Matthew Hansford Taylor's lap 1 unfortunate acrobatics as he came off the worst from 3 wide.
That he sure did. So, with that all said and done, David, we'll now turn ourselves to having a quick chat with the podium here from the opening race of the Category King. And I think we might as well, actually, might see if you could perhaps grab them. I'll get things queued up here, and maybe, I don't know, you tell me, you're going to go 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3?
I'm always a 3, 2, 1, which means the first driver we're going to get to is Benjamin Roberts. No, my arm's not strong enough, apparently, but Ben Roberts will join us, and just sneaking onto that podium so late.
Yeah, it was a close finish there. Wasn't expecting that. I thought Seth had run out of fuel, but then he was driving around on the cooldown lap, so not really sure what happened, but yeah, after stuffing up the quali lap and coming back from, second half of the grid, definitely take 3rd place.
How'd you approach the fuel strategy? We saw a couple of different ways to play it. In fact, you were one of the first drivers to stop.
Yeah, I thought, starting, it was really going to be close, put 7 or 8 litres in it. Thinking, starting back in the pack, I can take my time getting past a few people and save just enough fuel to get away with putting 7 litres in it, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, at the end, the timing says 0.4 of a second separated you from 4th place, and the right side of it, because you're on the podium, the first event from Category King.
Yeah, it was, I had to slow down in the middle of a race as well, so if anything, I probably should have been fighting Seth at the end anyway, but yeah, 3rd place, take that, good start, and roll on to the next one.
Good luck with the racing coming up.
Thanks a lot, boys.
Well then, as you said, David, after 3 comes 2, and for us today that will be number 92 of Caleb Hydes as he joins us here now. And had some pace there, Caleb, but unfortunately dropping away towards the end. Can you give us a little more as to what happened there towards the end of the race?
Yeah, it wasn't so Sigma in the end. I think my tyres were a bit too warmy, so yeah, I don't know what happened there. I mean, it's never nice to be racing a Vermilion car regardless, but yeah, fire up Ratcho fans. It was a good race until it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a good point actually you bring there maybe tyres, because it did look like these cars, they are, I guess, prone to being driven fast and loose, but definitely from what we were seeing, you look probably loosest of them all of the front runners, and I guess that might have played a part there, as you said. Though in saying that, coming home with a P2, are you happy enough with that result to kick things off? And given the fact that we double up here with another race shortly, does that get you in the right mindset going into the second race coming up shortly?
Yeah, no, I can't complain about my podium. I think it'll probably be the only competitive race this season. I haven't driven the Merc in over 2 years, so yeah, we'll see how we go. Hopefully it's a big aura.
Well then, fingers crossed to see how you go. And we did briefly touch on the broadcast. You are one of 2 drivers here in the field actually racing as part of the FIA4 Global Championship. Does that experience help you here at all? Just the seat time, given that I do notice we are on fixed setups, whereas you would have had open setup freedom for that one there, or does the setup changes make enough of a difference that it's a different car compared to what you're used to racing at that level?
Nah, to be honest, the car's really the same, no matter if you throw a Hyperdoc on it or not. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying this thing at the moment. It's been cool racing in the World Championship as well. So we got one round left of that. So finally got a top 10 last weekend. So hopefully we can get another good result in that and go from there. Just to be in the series, even with Ben Roberts as well, it is pretty cool. So yeah, can't hate this car too much.
Oh, good to hear that indeed. Well, good luck out there with the GT Force, Caleb. And, you are a pretty talented driver, generally speaking, unless there's some talent issues, which usually doesn't happen. So fingers crossed, may have a chance to chat to you again after the Mercs come out next.
Fingers are crossed. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
And after 2, that leaves 1. And David, therefore, I'll hand to you to chat with a man who fended off the challenge from Caleb Hydes. It was Zach Retro White who comes away the winner of our opening race at the Category King.
How we going?
Fair bit of pressure there.
Yeah, that was the draft wasn't helping me. I was not very demure at all.
And the track conditions, the tyres on this F4 car, obviously qualifying and the race starting off a cold track, and it looked not easy initially.
Yeah, it was contemplating switching tyres in the pit stop, but would have lost time out of that, so I just kept them on, and I think the fuel load actually helped us. Felt a lot better after that.
And the pressure points around the racetrack here, I mean, we see you and your rivals sort of sliding around at the change of direction through a couple of chicanes. Fastest path really is launching across the curbs in a few places as well.
Yeah, it's pretty damn uncomfortable. But we're all in the same boat, I guess, so just do it a little better than everyone else and carry on.
And off the race starting alongside your teammate, a little bit of help in the opening laps there to not have too much pressure as you bring the tyres in.
Yeah, he was on the block straight away, which is pretty handy. He didn't do it enough because Caleb was still in the draft, but oh well, got it done.
Exactly, congrats. Winner of the first event. Best of luck going into the second one.
Yeah, thanks mate, gonna absolutely hate this one.
Okay, Zach Rattray White winning with the F4 car at Montreal, and I'm not hearing great reviews about Event 2, so that gives me actually a lot of hope that we'll see some fresh faces on the podium when it comes to driving the sports cars.
Yeah, that could definitely be something a little interesting to keep our eyes out for based on that, which is fascinating to hear. I mean, saying that, it is Detroit Belle. There isn't a lot of space to really save it if things go wrong per se. We're going to take a short break here at SimSpeed TV, and then we'll return with coverage from Belle here as part of the ANZ E-Series Category King for this opening night of this new event from Motorsport Australia and ANZ E-Series.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
Well, it's time for the second race of Motorsport Australia and ANZ E-Series Category King. We move from the open wheelers to the GT4 sports cars. We move from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the St. Lawrence Seaway to Detroit Belle Isle on the St. Lawrence Seaway. You could sail from one venue to the other if you wanted. Now, drivers, they clearly like driving just a little bit more. David Haynes here with Daniel Yeaman. We move car, we move circuit, but I think the challenge that's going to be presented by this 25-minute race, pretty similar. Strategy, similar. Cars and racetrack is what's different.
Yeah, that it sure is, and looking forward to seeing how this one goes, because as we heard there, I should say, at the end of those races in the F4 car, David, not a lot of optimism from our front runners in that first race. So will be fascinating to see if that changes once we get to speaking to our podium getters from this next race here tonight. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, was looking at the track, one of the greats of American street racing. It's the great shame, Dave, I guess, is that we don't see this track in use anymore these days, with Detroit racing at the levels that this circuit saw, namely, of course, the IMSA Sports Car Championship and the IndyCar Series moving to the streets of downtown Detroit to very much moderate applause and reviews compared to the circuit that we have here on Belle Isle.
Yeah, to a little closer to GM's headquarters, a little bumpier, a little more crashes. I have a soft spot for this racetrack. I went and visited it in 2022. Just outside of Turn 5, there was an ice cream truck, and I got some ice cream, and it was a good day. We'll see what this racing will bring for our drivers today, but your key overtaking opportunities, of course, here are at Turn 3 and at the end of the back straight facing Canada at Turn 7. You race past the fountain at Turns 9, 10 and 11 and carry as much speed as possible out of the final sequence of right-handers. And your most sweeping corners are 1 and 2, but be careful of Turn 2, because as you go over the bridge on the exit, the track crests, your car wants to push out wide, and if you are a GM executive leading the IndyCar field in your Corvette, you'll find some of the delicious concrete walls around here. Other than that, pretty simple but great racetrack. Nice surrounds as well with the water, the trees, and all of that. Great chances to overtake, but also a punishing circuit.
Yeah, that it is. Concrete all around, if I'm not mistaken, at this place here. So there isn't a lot of, not much asphalt to work with here versus what you might normally see on the roads, but it seems to give it quite a nice bit of character in addition to the bumps and the jumps. And the main thing, of course, being it is very much a street circuit in its fullest name. Concrete walls are right next to the track everywhere you go around here, David.
Indeed. Lots of museums and other stuff around the circuit. So you've got the conservatory and aquarium off of Turn 4 there.
And as everything transitions over into qualifying, just remind you all of how that's going to work here in the Category King for this second race as well as the first. It is 2 laps for all the drivers. They do have the track to themselves as well, so a bit of freedom there to have some space to work with as well, David. And then we'll be getting off into the next race, and the main thing being, it'll be a rolling start as befits these GT4 cars rather than the standing we saw at Montreal.
Yep, 25% tank limit. Now, you normally think of a full tank in these GT4 cars as going just a little over 60 minutes. So I think you're sort of 15 to 18 minutes, I think, based on that fuel tank size for the Mercedes-AMG GT4. Everyone's going to be in the same car. Rolling race start here. And again, curbs, the track surface, the changes of direction, the big braking zones are what you've got to look out for. There is the GM Rensen 5 clumping tower of buildings there, housing lots of offices. The water separating Detroit from Windsor, Canada. If you're Canadian, you can go across the river and gamble at the casino in Detroit. If you're American, you can go across the river and gamble at the casino in Canada. It's a great little cultural exchange that they have going on. Qualifying now is going to set the grid. You see there's 10 minutes here, so no real hurry on the outlap, and the drivers will get in 2 flying laps. Zachary White, at the moment, he is the category king with that win in the F4 car. He's using the brake pedal plenty to try to get some heat into the tyres here of his Mercedes AMG.
Yeah, so this will be one, I think, to watch out for. Let's see how he goes. And we might ride on board with him for this first flying lap, I think. And there's time to see also how much this car bumps and bounces around this place. You can essentially see for the first fly lap, he's not actually going to go... Or I'm being misled by the engine note sending a little relaxed. That definitely was pushing a decent amount into turn 1. Let's see how it looks speed-wise. As you can see, having to struggle with the understeer out of turn 2, but keeps it away from the walls a decent amount on this first lap.
Now facing towards the braking zone at the end of the straight. Gearing's a little longer in these GT4 cars. He only gets up to 5th gear there before he jumps down into 2nd, gets a little bit of the apex curb. Use the curb on the exit. Anti-banked corner here, but you still launch across heaps of the curbing. A few other corners do have a bit of good positive banking to them, like through here. But you can also hook a little bit in the right-hander here, where it's so critical to get your perfect exit right underneath the gantry. Call it Strand. Got a pond lake to your right. You've got the river to your left. That water's cold, really cold. But you drive down to straighten off the braking zone and then turn into this segment here around the fountain where it's super tight. The corners are right nearby. This is one of the tighter parts of the racetrack. Zachary White, you see, he's down at 80 k's an hour through some of those parts, and then staying left to then brake for this right-hander, 67 k's an hour, and then bumpy on exit, bumpy on braking and turning for this double right-hander. It's 2 corners, but you start to sometimes try to flow a little bit of momentum one to the next, and then power on the exit to close out the first qualifying lap for Zachary White and lead him into the second. We've already got Ewan Baker, Sam Chapman, Josh Marsh, and Justin Talent who've set qualifying times. Benjamin Roberts goes to the top as Zachary White goes to 3rd.
Now let's have an eye on this, because this will probably be a little bit more aggressive, but we'll look and see how Benny Roberts does it, perhaps as well as the man currently sitting on pole. Certainly here, that is leaving not a lot left on the track there when it comes to pace, David, so he's going to give it his all on lap 2.
And iRacing qualifying on a street circuit is a challenging thing, because in other types of racing, if you did graze the wall a little bit, oops, I've scuffed the car, carry on, but it invalidates your qualifying lap to have too much contact on iRacing, so that's one of the things to look out for. Qualifying on a street circuit is not to graze that concrete around here, which of course would be so easy to do, and in a race condition you almost just do it habitually. You can get away with it if it's just a little graze at slow speed at a very friendly angle. For Roberts here, he's still pushing on as hard as possible, change of direction while braking there. Ewan Baker, he's been out early to get his laps in, and he goes back up to the top. Qualifying wasn't nice to him in the F4 car. And from here, Roberts has just got to flow more speed through here, back to throttle. Final corner officially after the pit entry there is a nothing of a corner. It's flat out in just about any type of machinery, straight to the line. And it sends Roberts to the top.
Very nicely done indeed, and he is straight out of there as well for good measure. So looks like he'll be the man sitting on provisional P number 1. As whilst Baker is still out here on track, he is not permitted to, well, it's a session is set up in a way that he can't get an extra lap in. So just waiting to see. We have ourselves 14 drivers with times. Stephen Banks in the pit lane, and Caleb Hyde's pulling over as well with only one, well, actually no valid laps in that case, because his first lap doesn't count, which would mean that that's going to be it for qualifying here, with just 14 out of our 16 times on the board. We are actually missing a couple of drivers who came through from race, who were in part of race 1, as late charge. Rukoisha jumps up a couple spots to 7th.
Yeah, Questra jumps up to 7th position. A few other drivers are still out there and rolling across the start-finish line, like Brendan Crawford. Yeah, Ewan Baker is done. Not a whole lot of improvement found from Brendan Crawford there, as Ewan Baker is going to take this opportunity to practice his pit entry. Not a fun thing I saw when I was here. That paddock area where all the tents are set up, where all the haulers would normally be. There were police officers practicing their driving out there. They were using it as a training skid pad situation. That locks in the grid from qualifying. 25 minutes of racing for Motorsport Australia ANZ E-Series Category King. And it's a different look to the front of the grid. Benjamin Roberts on pole, less than a tenth ahead of Ewan Baker. Pole sitter from the F4 car in Canada, Zach Rattray-White, will be third in the Mercedes at Detroit. Jamie Christensen getting a more convincing qualifying in event number 2 with 4th position. Then there's Sam Chapman and Seth Brown alongside each other in 5th and 6th on the grid for the rolling start. So it will be proper side-by-side 2 rows rolling start. Drew Koistra and Justin Talent, 7th and 8th position on the grid. Josh Marsh and Callum Newton look like they are going to be 9th and 10th after qualifying. Still within 2 seconds of the pole time set by Benjamin Roberts. And just a little bit outside of that pace, Byron Phillips and Brendan Crawford. What a helmet for Phillips. And Diane Feldman, 13th. David Atkinson, 14th. 2 drivers without qualifying times were Caleb Hydes and Stephen Banks.
And they are going to round out your field here for event number 2. The sports cars from Detroit, Belle, Iowa's field now just queuing up on the back straight before we get ready to go. And once again, 25 minutes will be awaiting them at the end of this, well, at the start of this race. They'll eventually get to the end of that one in due course. And, well, they should need to stop for fuel, but it won't be too much fuel, unlike what we saw in the F4s, I would think.
Yeah, I did that back of the envelope numbers as we got to this racetrack, didn't I? That suggests that the fuel run length is about 18 minutes based on the tank size that the AMG GT4 has been given, would give us a slightly wider pit window in the middle of this race for the sports cars than we had for the Formula cars. But again, I mean, you think just particularly about Circuit Montreal, that it's a high fuel consumption, high brake wear circuit. I think it's a little less so of those characteristics here at Detroit. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was always going to be high fuel consumption, and that gave it a narrow pit window. Rolling on the formation lap, and again, trying to get temperature, pressure for the brakes, for the tyres, so critical before we get underway. These cars significantly heavier than the single-seaters. They're not GT3 cars, they're not purebred race cars, they're production car derived, and to that extent, they're about 1,500 kilos.
Yeah, certainly not a... Well, there would have been some weight saving, of course, yeah, in transitioning these from road car to race car of this fashion, but yes, very much going to be feeling their production car origins behind the wheel as they try and throw these things around and keep it in between the walls as we round the last couple of turns here before we'll get underway. David, in the hands of Ben Roberts for race 2 of the Category King here tonight as part of this opening week or opening event for this series. As we now get ready to see, will he go before the green? Will he hold for the lights?
Well, the pace car pulled into that pit entry that we're going to see in race conditions. The flag man waves the green flag, and pole sitter Ben Roberts gets stumped just a little bit. Josh Marsh is just confusing the timing there. A little bit of contact through turn 2. The run down towards the big braking zone has been a good opening lap for Roberts. Rattray-White trying to make some moves. Ewan Baker getting swamped here a little bit with his Silver Arrow Silver Fern car around the outside of turn 3. Can carry some momentum there, but he's not being given any space.
Trying to now keep it with Seth Brown. He's going to stick it on the outside, and contact will then get, well, the number 51 re-straightened a little bit there, but that's going to be called in, I believe, straight away. And therefore, yeah, looked at it. Oh, Baker's at a moment on the run out of the back straight, and in the background, and I believe it's Caleb Hyde's around in the background in the number 92 machine.
Fantastic opening lap for Ben Roberts and Zachary White. For some others, though, it's been difficult. It's been dramas. Can't flick spin these GT4 cars very easily with the traction control on. It's a Motor City 3-point turn for Caleb Hyde. It's a massive gulf of time. Opens up between first and second. Down to third place, Jamie Christensen made just a couple spots. Seth Brown's rolling again in that fourth position from Sam Chapman. Pardon me, in fifth, and Ewan Baker still rolls in sixth.
It's been a pretty crazy opening lap there, unfortunately, for a couple of drivers. So I can hear a little bit more rubbing of the concrete as Roberts comes across the line comfortably in, well, not comfortable, I should say. Zachary White is there, but not under a immediate pressure here at the end of the first lap. Gap of 9/10 of a second as he exits turn 2.
And they're flying along. There's a few more cars leaving their signature on the concrete on the exit of turn 2. Shaping up for a move on Ewan Baker here goes Rue Koistra. There's a bit of damage on the front, obviously, for Ewan Baker. To what extent that's going to hinder him, I don't know just yet. Passing is normally difficult through this part of the lap, and the queue forms with Koistra, Talent, Marsh, Newton. Stephen Banks made a bunch of positions on that opening lap there as well. Look at him, 5 positions gained to 11th. And one of the corners that was challenging Ewan Baker was that right-hander onto the back straight here, the Strand, heading towards the braking for the Fountain section. Brown in 4th, come under some pressure from Chapman.
Yeah, you can almost argue the train goes all the way from Seth Brown here back to Stephen Banks, slightly towards the rear of the field in 11th place. But there are some gaps to negotiate here at this stage when we're looking outside of the top 2 who have absolutely run away by a country margin. So there's a bit of trouble for the number 55 of Brendan Crawford. He's unfortunately down the escape road at the end of the Strand. Thankfully, is pointing the right way to get that turned out and back on track.
He's gone looking for my ice cream, but hasn't found it. Tyre temperature and pressures are coming in. Driver confidence is getting a little bit better as the field spaces out and they all get a little bit more elbow room to work with. Ewan Baker is going to use all of it out of turn 2 there. Ben Roberts takes the fastest lap of the race, 1.1 seconds ahead of Rattray White, who might find something as we continue to race on. This is Christensen, third. Drivers queuing up behind him. 9 a.m. in the morning. 22 Celsius is the track temperature.
And not a drop of rain in sight according to the forecast, so the drivers aren't going to have to worry about needing a compound change in this one, it seems. Tonight, David, just like we saw on the F4s, given both the cars here are wet weather capable. Looks like we're going to keep it a little more relaxed on the weather front, given all that.
Yeah, nice enough weather. So on board with Banks, trying to get the nose of the big Mercedes through these compound sections of corners. This is one of the places you see a little bit of a difference in line. Banks keeps it tight through the left-hander to try to get a good run through the right-hander. Others will go a little wider through the left, point their nose straight at the apex of that right-hander. It's really slow and you just sort of park it there and then straighten the car up for the exit. Scraping the wall in front of Stephen Banks, though, was Callum Newton. Gives Banks an opportunity to try to close in through turns 1 and 2. What you need is a good exit off turn 2, a little bit of a slipstream. Turn 3 is looking like it's going to be the best place to try to overtake. That's what Banks is doing, flowing speed through 2, just a little on the exit there, within a car length. You need just a tiny bit more of a mistake from the driver in front, unless you're going to absolutely dive bomb into 3, which he is not inclined to do.
And our first take of the pit lane, barely 5 minutes into this one. It's going to be Caleb Hyde's after a nightmare of a lap 1. We'll see if that means he can get enough fuel in the car to get it topped up, although no question is, at 10-second stop already, I kind of get the feeling he... up on the jacks, getting tyres as well. I kind of wonder if that might have been a little unintentional, as Diane Feldman just gone past, so down to the final place in the stage. Still on the lead lap, although that won't be for long if he stays there any longer. And as you can see here, Roberts already out at the fountain section, has just 2 actual and another short kink left to negotiate in this third lap of his race.
Rattray White's taken the fastest lap of the race. Benjamin Roberts looks to be responding somewhat. The gap between the two of them has stayed steady at about 1.2 seconds. No one else seems to be able to go with them. There's a few dented Mercedes behind this as well in 3rd, 4th, 5th place kind of thing. So Christensen and Brown and Chapman haven't quite been able to go with the pace that Benjamin Roberts and Zach Rattray White have been setting, as they both in sequence reset the fastest lap of the race. Rattray White tries to reset the positioning of the wall on the outside of turn 2.
He does, but I think that he might have got away with that gentle brush. As here's the rest of the field. Now you can see actually all the way back to Byron Phillips in 12th place there, in frame altogether along that stretch. It's long enough and straight enough, David. We can get that many cars in shot. Of course, through parts of the track like this staircase, going to be about half as many. Particularly, you can see here these drivers 3rd through 6th, if I can get my words out straight. All potentially should eye off that final podium spot at this time as they run up the strand once more.
Just key on a street circuit that your traction out of the corners preceding the long straights is perfect, because if you're a little slow through here, they're not going to be able to pass you. If you're a little slow through the staircase, they're not going to be able to pass you. What they need is more speed than you on the straight towards the big braking zone, and it's not what Christensen has been giving them. So again, look how close Brown gets through here. It's not an easy passing opportunity unless you've got 1,000,000% more grip than your rival. Christensen's been measured and precise in just the 2 places on the racetrack that he needs to be. And he's holding them all up, but doing it very well.
Once more, fastest lap is in the hands of Ben Roberts there, 33.739. Bests the time set by Zach Rattray White by 1/10.5 on this current circuit around the track. And what it also meant was he pulled a bit of a margin nicely on that lap of about 0.4 of a second advantage over Rattray White's lap there at the same time. So margin at 1.5 seconds or thereabouts, as it ebbs and flows slightly on the lap as we speak. See if that changes the position further on back in the field. It's not done yet though for Byron Phillips. He's trying to clear Callum Newton, but there was going to be just a fair bit of paint traded there in the exchange for 11th on the road.
Missing rear bumper for Byron Phillips. There's scrapes everywhere else. I wouldn't be convinced that the suspension is okay back there either, as he kicks it sideways onto the back straight. And we'll have a little bit of something heading down the back straight here. Byron Phillips will throw it in super deep on the brakes. There'll be a bit of contact and he'll spin around on the inside.
No, and doesn't get a flick spun, so he ends up in the concrete on the other side of the road. That's going to do just a bit more damage again to the front of the number 69 now. As I'm just waiting to see if there are any decisions from Racing Control. The answer is not yet. As on this particular time around, it'll be Rattray White's turn to reclaim the fast lap of the race. Goes to the 33.6 bracket as we look back in at this battle for 3rd on back as they exit turn 2.
Ewan Baker did such a great job in qualifying, and then the opening lap was difficult for him. Now he's part of this group of drivers lined up behind Jamie Christensen. Came to some lap 1 blows a little bit with Seth Brown. They had a rather robust disagreement about what constituted racing room between the concrete walls there. Just a couple of dents on the front bumper for Baker and a couple of other places for Brown and Chapman. none as severe as we saw for Byron Phillips with suspension damage, missing the rear bumper, probably missing a front bumper as well. Based on the speed he went into the wall. So my estimation would say we're in the pit window now for sure.
Yeah, over 10 minutes of the race complete and coming up on 14 to go. I'd be shocked if we weren't.
It's a bigger tank for these GT4 cars, so it's a 25%, both the F4 car and these GT4s. The GT4 cars are far more designed for long stints, endurance races, as sports car races. Anything longer than a sort of half an hour race in F4 is an outlier.
Yeah, that it will be. So just looking now to see how the drivers will make the most of it. It's just focusing on our two leaders as well, I think. Also a good look at this one here. Just going to try and get the comparison to load up on screen. There we go. See on the previous two laps, well, start at lap 5 where Roberts set the then fastest lap of the race. He then settles into a 33.8 and a 33.9, which are pretty close together as well because it's a very high 8 and a low 9. But Rattray White chipping away on both of those laps has got himself back inside a second here as they come to the end of the back straight and into this fountain section once more for the 8th lap of this race.
Rattray White's been a bit hero or zero in the first sector because the lap where he lost the time, he lost all of it in the first sector, running wide through turn 2 and scraping the wall. The laps like this one where he's gained time back, it's been through the first sector, so I think he's got a line there that can be very quick. But there's so much unpredictability with a surface like this. You think you're on the same racing line, but you're half a millimetre off, and the car bounces differently on the seams in the concrete, gets airborne differently on just little imperfections in the surface. So I think that's for Rattray White, taking quite a bit of risk through there, and when it works great. But then sometimes the car doesn't do what you think, bouncing across all of these seams, gaps, imperfections in this racing surface. Anywhere that the groundwater can freeze in winter, the pavement doesn't stay particularly smooth.
Yeah, that would be something indeed to witness. Unfortunately, not going to be something I expect I'll be witnessing, at least in person, anytime soon. As up through the staircase here on this occasion, David, look how much Rattray White appears to close in now. He appears to have found something in terms of confidence in behind your current race leader here, Ben Roberts. Whether it's just willing to push it a little bit closer to the walls, which that would be confidence. So I guess I'm saying the same thing twice over at this stage. As right on board with the man in second place.
Yeah, 2/10 gained in the first sector, but then he's hit that slipstream and he's gained another 3/10 in the middle sector of just this lap alone, and you can see how it's enabled Zach Rattray White to really get within distance to try to pressure Benjamin Roberts. A few more pit stops are coming through, so Jamie Christensen, Byron Phillips, a few others made their stops. David Atkinson's just been through the lane now. Past the halfway point of the race, of course we're in the pit window now, but a few of them are thinking, track position is key on a street circuit. I do want to run this long because if you're Benjamin Roberts and you pit now from the lead, you give up the clean air in front, you might rejoin about 30 seconds back around Callum Newton, around Ewan Baker, get tangled up with them, lose time, and get overcut by Zach Rattray White if he stayed out. So they'll run as long as they can on the starting fuel and then just take how much they need to get home from there.
See there, not afraid to push the limits of the track and the limit of grip on these tyres here, as up and over some curbs and getting a bit of rear end step out through this opening sector of the lap here. That there, apparently close enough for the sound cue, was that he tapped the wall, I believe at the apex there onto the back stretch. And now inside of 4/10. Can he make it inside of 3/10 by the end of the straight? Yep, sure can. And knocking on the door of inside. Almost a quarter of a second. Barely missed out on it, but this is going to get interesting here. Inside of the 10 minutes to go as well for good measure, David, as the clock ticks down. Let's see here, which of these two is going to come out on top? Is Roberts maybe just trying to back him up? Save a touch of fuel as well. Because from what we saw on board with Rattray White, he's not exactly saving anything here, David. So maybe that's the play.
Yeah, this could be like the first race of the evening where it all comes down to the in-lap, the amount of fuel you take, and the out-lap. Heading towards the pit lane comes the leader, Benjamin Roberts. Zach Rattray-White will have the ability to overcut. And so this needs to be the best lap of his life. Absolutely maximize all of the sectors, because his best way to make a move is to have a quick lap now, followed by a quick stop. We follow Benjamin Roberts because for his chances of winning, it's exactly the same story. He had a decent enough in-lap. He needs a good stop here, and he needs the out-lap to be perfection as well. A few other drivers are going to join Roberts in the pit lane. Koistra, Talent, Banks, and here's Callum Newton in as well with just 8.5 minutes to go. Stop time for Roberts, 9.5 seconds. That's the number that Rattray-White will aim to either match or better.
Yeah, he's going to have to now. In fact, basically everyone's in at this point. So maybe despite what we said there about Rattray-White not pushing, maybe that was a case if he'd held back on the first couple of laps, and now he's been unleashed himself to push. As you see here, though, pit delta's not as long, I don't think, as what we saw at the other tracks. See Rattray-White coming through the fountain as battles on the exit after the pit stops. Justin Talent in front of Rook Koistra. I think that has happened in the pit lane, by the looks of things. Yes, I believe so.
There's a small gap between them now, racing to the end, so they'll have to settle it with passes on track. Zach Rattray-White is in the lane, remembering that a pit lane transit time of 30 seconds and a stop of 9.5 is what he's going to hope to better Benjamin Roberts on, and having gone a lap longer, it seems entirely possible. Sam Chapman, the other driver who's gone this many laps into the race, will also be stopping now, so everyone is been through pit lane or is in pit lane. How's the out lap for Roberts? How's the in lap for Rattray-White? Roberts has got it and got a decent margin here as we go racing again. I think Roberts is going to have more than a second on Rattray-White, despite, do you know what I'm seeing there? Short stop time, long lane time. Sometimes getting these cars moving from the standing start out of the pit box is difficult.
Yeah, there you go. 1.1 seconds difference in total cone-to-cone time, whilst being 9/10 short. That is very much a case of either, well, conservative on the exit, which is most likely, as you said, rolling it away from the box. Maybe there's a bit of difference as well in how aggressive Roberts was able to be on pit entry, perhaps, as well. That'd be the other place you could maybe gain some time and aggression down the lane in terms of how close you push the pit speed limit as well. That's a possibility too, perhaps. But resets the fight, as you said, David. 1 second the margin here, halfway around Rattray-White's outlap. 6 minutes and change on the clock to boot as well. So we're probably looking at another 4 laps at this stage as they come out of the fountain.
The tall first gear, the clutch, the anti-stall, I think sometimes it really bogs down and the traction control doesn't want you to spin the tyres coming out of the pit box, even though it is the fastest way, is just to have some revs on as you go from a standing start up towards the pit lane speed limit. It's slower than 80 k's an hour here, but it is a short lane on the street circuit. How's the drift? From third place, Seth Brown still got his teammate Sam Chapman breathing down the back of his neck. Both of them have gotten clear of Jamie Christensen, so it's gone well to run long for Sam Chapman. Ewan Baker is in the 6th position. He's the driver to try to pressure Christensen in the final stint of this race.
So now really lining up as pairs here towards the front of the field. We'll actually switch the tower over from a total gap to the leader to intervals between the cars. You can see it now. 0.8 of a second between Roberts and Rattray-White. Well, that's unchanged regardless of how we display it. But you can then see 0.6 between Brown and Chapman, and 0.5 second between Christensen and Baker here on track.
A couple of big gainers through the race as marked by the positions gained, positions lost. Stephen Banks has picked a couple up after having no qualifying there. Seth Brown's picked off a few. And Zach Rattray-White, he's got 1, he's looking for 2. He's got the fastest lap of the race to his name. Here is Banks in ninth.
Coister and Talent up the road in sight, David, but whether he can get there in time.
Rattray White's just had the fastest first sector I've seen all race. I don't know if it is absolutely the fastest. Second sector was good too. He's got the fastest lap of the race and a chance to improve on it. Definitely bringing margin out of Benjamin Roberts as he does nail another fastest lap of the race. Rattray White's got pace to use, but overtaking in these cars, the slipstream's not as strong as it was for the F4 cars at Montreal. These cars don't slipstream as heavily, the straight's not as long, passing proving far more difficult for the sports cars than the open wheelers.
Right on board with number 17 once again, and from this angle here, with all of these right and left turns, as you see there from that angle, apparently getting the apex wall with the right front wheel arch, and it scuffed it up just a little bit here, but not afraid to press on down the back straight away here. Look to see, can he get this car in? He's certainly getting it pulled up nicely, using the apex curve, not afraid to in a car like this, of course, as you said, David. Can really ride the flatter curbs around here. Certainly, though, curves like that there on the left-hand side of the car, hard to use. He's going to maybe look for it there into turn 12 or turn 10, but no dice this time by.
You know, before the pit stops, he was close, and I thought maybe he'd try that move. It's the Hail Mary to go wide through the left-hander and try to surprise and pull out late and dive bomb into the right-hander. He kept it in his pocket earlier in the race. Now he's shown it's something he might do. Benjamin Roberts just needs to park the inside there on the remaining 2 laps, and there'll be no way that Rattray White can get past. Because as the leading car here, you're not trying to catch anyone. The lap time doesn't matter. Keeping the other guy behind is all that matters. Defending the inside of these corners, defending the apex. It's a great first sector, though, again from Rattray White off of turn 2. Not close enough to attack at turn 3, which I would normally think of as the best opportunity. Rattray White is going to run out of opportunities because he's shown his hand and what he might do at some of the opportunist positions.
No, but he forces Roberts there defensive on the way up the staircase. And it's going to mean here onto the back straight. Oh, it's a narrow exit from your number 74, trying to protect all hands to the inside here. And he'll run up against the concrete and say, if you want to pass me, the left-hand side of the road is where you'll have to go. The door's wide open, and Rattray White will maintain overlap. Crossover, though, going to the outside here, but if you can hang it around these left-hand turns, you'll have the apex for the next right-hander here at the exit of the fountain section, and nose ahead as well for good measure here, David, as he powers around. He's going to take the lead away from Ben Roberts here on this lap of the race with 1.5 minutes to go to be fun, but he parks it up, trying to protect, keeps Roberts in the game.
They're going to head to one more lap. You don't normally park there, but in being as defensive as he was, now Roberts thinks he can go around the outside of Zach Rattray White. They'll go side by side, places you don't normally see them go side by side. They lean into each other on the way to the white flag for one more lap of Detroit Belle Isle circuit. They're absolutely neck and neck for one more circuit. Zach Rattray White's got himself ahead for the final lap of the race. Roberts will not give up easy, has a good run through turn 2. Right-hand side, super defensive positioning from the race leader. Roberts closes in, and then he's eventually got to decide, I'll keep this guy forced defensive. I can do something with this. There's a bounce over the curb, a slide from Zach Rattray White. Benjamin Roberts might think he's given him a hit, but I think half of it was the bounce over the curb from the race leader.
From that angle there, did look like he was starting to go around, and then maybe a bit of a gentle touch that finished him off at that point. And that will mean that unless he chooses to massively back off, and I think he might be backing off a little bit there, gap dropping from 4.5 to 3.5 seconds and then restabilizing for a bit, that might just end the race for the win here as Seth Brown at full speed. Going to now maybe try and eye off his Vermilion Esports teammate into the backstretch. No, not this time. And, well, it's the last time into that corner there, so we'll have to try somewhere else if he really wants it.
Seth Brown was almost the opportunist on the final lap here, but Rattray White got it going again in time to hold on to second place. And if he gets a first from race 1 and a second from race 2. He'll have done the best overall average across both of tonight's events. Category King, ANZ E-Series, Motorsports Australia, Esports together. Gap's closing in again for the race lead here. So Roberts was out 3.6 seconds. Now coming towards the checkered flag, backing it up. Rattray White out of fuel? He must be. Brown comes through. Chapman comes through. I think he didn't have enough fuel to have a spin like that. It's cost him more fuel on the final lap than he'd expected. All change at the end. Even Ewan Baker come through for another free spot.
Hold up. Whilst we were focusing on... pardon me, we were focusing there on Ben Roberts.
So is Roberts trying to give it up, but then Chapman runs out. Okay, here's Roberts trying to give up the position to Chapman, but he can't because Chapman runs out of fuel.
Yeah, trying to give it up to Rattray White.
Seth Brown comes through and wins. And then, yeah, wow. Incredible drama on the final lap.
Race control actually clarifying over the radio there would have been no further action for with the incident there between... Actually, have a quick look at that one more time as well, actually, David. Another replay here between Roberts and Rattray White. So let's try and get... Yeah, that car, as you said, I think you can just hear on the engine note, the car did sound like it's starting to go around before he got a little tut there from Roberts. Let's hear it one more time, on board this time.
It's on board. Zach Rattray White. He's defending the inside at turn 3. He takes more curb on a tighter line than you normally would. I think he was bouncing and spinning already, but it's this spin coming to a halt, doing a burnout in first gear to get facing the right way again, and then losing all of his momentum and having to get up to speed again, that I think has caused him to run out of fuel between the final corner and the checkered flag and given the win to Seth Brown.
It's not something we normally see when it comes to the racing action, but those are your results for the second event, or race, of his first event in Motorsport Australia ANZ E-Series Category King. And with the no further action call from race control coming through there whilst we're on the replay, that will indeed mean Seth Brown gets himself a win here tonight in the sports car category, ahead of Ben Roberts. Sam Chapman up to third with fuel across the line, ahead of Jamie Christensen in fourth, and Ewan Baker rounds into the top 5 as well with a strong finish. Rattray White running out of fuel there, drops him down to P6, and that ends up ultra compressing that front bunch there. And then it leaves you with Justin Talent, best of the rest, ahead of Rue Koistra, although I think I just heard something over the radio potentially between the two of them. We might have missed that. And then in behind, you've got Callum Newton and Stephen Banks rounding out your top 10 there in the second race, David.
Yep. Finishing on the lead lap, Josh Marsh in 11th, Brendan Crawford 12th, David Atkinson in 13th. On lap down, Dan Feldman, Byron Phillips, so much damage to him. He retired with and ended up 8 laps down. Same for Caleb Hydes. He didn't lie. He was not going to be particularly great in the GT4 cars. He's 16th, having been ultra competitive in the F4 car.
And with that concludes the racing results. And now just leaves us a quick chat with our podium getters here in race number 2. And we'll do what we did last time, working our way up from third. So it means we turn our attention to Sam Chapman in the 101. Maybe a bit of a surprise there, Sam, to get the podium in race 2, but nevertheless, got to be in it to get a good result at the end of the day.
Yeah, it definitely was a surprise towards the end there. That was a wild finish. We were sort of pushing Zach around a little bit, but he was out of fuel and sort of went, well, we're going to have to make it fast here, because we saw Ben slowing down as well. So, yeah, you got to be in it to win it. And I was very, very low on fuel myself. So that actual slowing down on the final lap wasn't such a bad thing for me.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll confirm with Ben Roberts that we think he was trying to give the spot back to Zach.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so that's what we thought so indeed. But unfortunately, as you said there, Zach running out of fuel just made that plan a little bit interesting there. But how was your... Because unfortunately, yeah, with the fascinating battle at the front, we sort of turned away from you guys towards the end of the race. But you were in this battle pack here for third on back all race long, and a couple of teammates, but you also had Ewan Baker there for company as well.
Yeah, we're all sort of line astern. I was sort of quite happy following. I put about 3 litres less fuel in at the stop, so I was sort of planning around that, which did work, but Seth was pretty quick, and then I had a wobble, so he got back past. But yeah, no, we're in that pack for most of the race. It wasn't super easy to pass, and I didn't really have much interest in passing at that point. But yeah, no, relatively quiet, but good result.
Well, with that all said and done, it means we, with the way the Category King series works, we'll be heading off to a completely different set of disciplines. And haven't told anyone on broadcast yet, but we might as well spill the beans a little early. The next set of races will be oval circuits, a combination of asphalt and dirt to boot as well. So, any confidence in what that will come in the Category King event next races, or will that be sort of have to see what happens when you get there?
We'll see what happens. Like, I've been doing a fair bit of oval recently with like the NASCAR E-Series qualifying, so that iRating's taken over my sport iRating, weirdly enough, but not in the IndyCar. So we'll see what happens with that. Dirt oval, I've only just got my D license up to be qualified, so that could be a bit of a wobble. But we'll see how we go. I quite like the mini stocks. That they'll make some good racing for people that are really quick and might not know the discipline too well.
Well, thanks for chatting with us this, Sam. Fingers crossed for next time out that it goes well for you there. And thanks for well done here tonight with third place in the GT4s.
Right.
With that one there done, David, I'll hand to you, and we'll bring in the man who does come across the line in second place, Ben Roberts, now joining us here in the box once again.
Well, I don't want to talk too early about the final lap, but in the middle sections of the race, just trading lap times back and forth between yourself and Zach Rattray White, pulling away from the rest of the field. What's your strategy then in the opening part?
Sort of opening and middle was, get that a little bit of a gap early and just save tiny bit of fuel just to save that extra litre, because that was going to be really close. So I was able to do that. Going into the last lap though, Zach just had pace once he wasn't saving fuel when he was on it. He just had the pace on me. It was a bit of net code in turn 3. I was going to go for a switchback, and then he decided to protect the inside. So I tried to change my mind last second. That is what it is. Yeah, I was just trying to give a place back essentially on the last lap without him, without knowing that he was running out of fuel. So, and yeah, it sucks that I got P2, but yeah, it's still good points either way, and this is all good fun.
Wider pit stop window with the GT4?
Yeah, it was, but yeah, fuel saving was a bit easier in this because it uses more fuel, but strategy was pretty much the same. If you're out front, stay with the clean air as long as you can.
And then the difficulty for overtaking with a less powerful slipstream, bigger cars, walls a little bit closer. It's definitely a big jump in difference from the racecraft and the driving style of, is there 4 cars here into the GT4?
Yeah, it is. I'm doing sort of a lot of F4 at the moment, sort of with the Australian Championships and the Global Championships, but stuff like this, these sort of car track combinations is what I started with, and it's just what I've always gelled with. So, slipstream, I don't really mind the lack of slipstream. Being closer to the walls than the other car in front. It's a little bit more sort of risk versus reward, if anything.
Congrats on 2 podium results in Category King.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and with that, David, sounds like you might have brought in the last man to chat with us here tonight, and perhaps one of the biggest or most surprise drivers of the night, your race winner from the sports cars here tonight, but certainly no less deserving. Seth, congratulations on taking the checkered flag first here at Belle in the GT4s.
Yeah, pretty Sigma finish, you know. Yeah, well, I knew Zach was trying to save fuel, and we just 3 teammates behind him tried to chill behind him, but just wasn't enough. And if I tried to push him over the line, it probably would have caused a 5-car train crash. So I just went past him, and I thought Ben had a low on fuel, but obviously he was trying to give the place back. But oh well, I'll take it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, how was it like sort of settling into that front pack after? Because yeah, Ben and Zach tonight just in the GT4s as well did look like they weren't going to be challenged at all. And then obviously, yeah, everything turning on its head there at the end. Sort of, what was the play once it was sort of more, at least the plan and the expectation was you're going to be fighting for third there in that race?
Yeah, there was no way we were catching them. They were so fast, and also a lot of us got a bit of damage when me and Owen made contact, a bit of a racing incident. Tried to squeeze them and just glued. And then, yeah, we were just fighting for third, and then, yeah, pretty much how it is.
Well, it means, yeah, you walk away with a great finish to wrap up here tonight. And I'll ask Sam about this. We head to some oval racing next time out for the Category King this event, a mini series. So will you be confident going into those 2 races once we start turning left exclusively, or will that be something you might be looking to do some more practice for?
Yeah, I do not rate myself on oval. Dirt oval, I'm alright. I do, yeah, some stuff, but we'll see how we go. I'm sure there's gonna be some crashing, so.
Could be frantic, could be chaotic. That is still to be seen, though, indeed. Well, thanks for chatting with us here, Seth, and good luck with the dirt oval and the asphalt oval when the Category King returns in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, cheers, Sigma.
And that will do us for post-race interviews here, David. And as we've now heard from the drivers, potentially some mixed feelings about what comes next as well. And as you heard from Sam, it'll be the dirt mini stock at Limaland for the dirt side, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway will play host to the Dallara IR18 Indy cars for the asphalt oval race of that event. Dirt before asphalt, the races 3 and 4 of the Category King, coming up in 2 weeks' time on Saturday the 2nd of November.
Yep, so you'll see it all in the same places on Motorsport Australia's channels and on SimSpeed. Congratulations to race winners from both disciplines tonight. We look forward to seeing what pavement and dirt oval racing can bring us in 2 weeks' time for Motorsport Australia with ANZ Esports Category King. I've been David Haynes with Daniel Yeaman bringing you SimSpeed's coverage. It was unpredictable, but thoroughly enthralling from the Formula cars and sports cars, and it just stays fresh from here.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.